Okay, well, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for coming out to this workshop presentation about public speaking tonight. I'm really excited to share with you some of what I know and I've learned through 4-H tonight. My name is Victoria Picheli, and as Danusha mentioned, I'm a provincial 4-H ambassador for the Fraser Valley region, and this is my 9th year in 4-H. So here's a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to do a short introduction to public speaking and how it works in 4-H, and then we'll move on to writing speeches and layout. And then finally, we're going to look at speech presentation and some tips and skills to polish your speech and make sure it all really comes together and you're really doing your best. This session is here to get you started as we move into this 4-H public speaking season. There's a lot of information to come, so don't worry if some of it goes over the top of your head. That's perfectly fine. Really, the best way for you to get the most out of this workshop is to participate. So I want to encourage you to please ask questions, throw them into the chat, or put up your hand. I'll try and answer questions as we go along, or at the very end, we'll have some time for questions as well. If you want to turn on your camera, that would be great. I see lots of smiling faces looking back at me, so that's perfect. The session is going to be split up and there's going to be polls. You'll have the opportunity to practice some of what we're learning as we're going along through some writing activities that we're going to be doing. Earlier today, I believe there was a workshop package sent out with some pages that you can work through. So if you've got that, that's great. If you want to take some notes, there's a little bit of space on the 3rd page, I think. We're going to be looking at a couple of the activities in there, but most of that package is for you to complete on your own after the workshop if you'd like. There are some great pages in there just to get you thinking about and practicing your public speaking skills over these next couple of weeks. If you don't have that package with you, no worries. I'll give you a second to go and grab a pencil and paper instead, and then we'll get going. All right, so I'm gonna put a poll in there. You should see that pop up. And so why don't you fill that out and let us know a little bit about who you are. Where are you joining us from? How many years have you been in 4-H? How old are you? Will this be your first time public speaking? So personally, I've competed in around 30 to 40 4-H communication competitions. So public speaking is something I've done a lot. I've had a lot of practice at. In the beginning, I definitely wasn't happy that I had to do public speaking a lot, but I started out really nervous, and now it's something that I really love, and I hope you'll soon feel the same way as me. All right, I see a lot of responses coming through. Lots of people joining us from all over the place. It's awesome. All right, I'll give you a couple more seconds to fill that out. I know there's a lot of questions there, so it might take you a second. All right. I hope you can see the results of that. We've got people from all over the province, some from Vancouver Island, the Fraser Valley, Kamloops, Okanagan, Yellowhead West. People of all different ages. Yeah, and all different years of 4-H. So huge diversity of people here tonight. That's awesome. And a lot of people, their first time competing in public speaking. So that's so exciting. I hope that you'll all learn something this evening. Okay, we're going to start with the basics. A bit of an introduction to public speaking. So why don't you start off by telling me a little bit about how prepared you feel right now for public speaking. Maybe if you can, I think there's an annotate button that you can click on and you can draw on the screen and circle which animal you feel kind of represents where you feel right now. How nervous you are. Maybe you're really excited or you're feeling chill. Maybe you're like this cat and you're like totally freaking out and have no idea. And you can also throw it in the chat if you want. Someone feeling just a little bit nervous? Yeah, that's very understandable. Uh-oh, we've got someone who's feeling like the cat. That's okay. That means the only way is up, right? You can only feel better. So all over the place. Someone feeling super, super confident, super ready. Someone feeling as though they've got no clue what public speaking is. Hey, I think we can all relate to that at some point. We're a bit confused.
I'm going to say coming in on the chat too, we've got goose and cat, we've got duck, cat, goose and cat, sheep. So it's all over the place.
That's awesome. If you're already feeling really good about public speaking, that's really awesome. And it's totally okay to be nervous too. If you're nervous, then it really shows that you care and you really want to do well. So hopefully by the end of tonight, you'll maybe feel a little bit more prepared. Maybe you'll move up in an animal. So if you're feeling like the cat, you might be feeling like the horse soon. All right. There we go. So if this is your first time doing a speech, which it seems like a lot of you were, you might be wondering, what is 4-H public speaking like? Well, it's going to depend a little bit on what club you're in. But generally what you're going to do is you'll write, then you'll prepare and practice your speech, and then you're going to stand and present it to your 4-H club in a room looking something like one of these two. You're going to be nicely dressed up and you'll have some cue cards. These are cue cards, the little cards. We're going to talk about them a bit later. And you're going to have your speech written on those cue cards. And there will be your 4-H club members, some parents, leaders, guests, judges, and a timekeeper who are all going to be watching you absolutely fantastically presenting your speech. There are usually 2 to 3 judges who will score you on a scorecard, and then they'll place the top speakers. Yeah, that's how it works. Public speaking comes with great prizes and opportunities if you do well. You can win rosettes and money and the opportunity to travel and compete at different competitions, further ones down the line. So this is how it works. The top 2 speakers placed at the club level will compete at the district level, and the top 2 there will compete at the regional competition. And then for seniors who are members aged 13 to 21, the top 2 placed speakers at the regionals qualify to go to the provincial communication finals. And that's a 3 to 4 day trip to somewhere in BC where you compete again. And it works a little bit different at the provincial level. We can talk about that later if someone's interested in how provincials works differently. But the top place speaker at provincials then qualifies for a national convention. So there's a great incentive to work hard and make sure you do your best at this, because there's great things you can be able to do. But there are other reasons for public speaking besides the opportunities and prizes, even though they're super great. Communication skills are needed at school, in your career, and everywhere in life. Public speaking builds self-esteem and boosts confidence, and 4-H is the best place to start building these skills. I have heard so many people say that they can always spot a 4-H kid out of a group of people because they are able to actually express themselves in front of an audience. There are also rarely opportunities in everyday life where you get to speak about something important to you uninterrupted for a few minutes. And public speaking is the only way you get that opportunity. So if you've got something you really want to tell people about, this is your opportunity. No one can interrupt you and you can just go for it. And here's a quote I really like. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. Okay, we're going to look at writing speeches now. So what are the guidelines for 4-H speeches? Juniors, which are members aged 9 to 12 years old, present a speech between 3 and 5 minutes in length on any topic. Seniors, who are members aged 13 to 21 years old, present a speech between 5 and 7 minutes long on any topic. And they also have to present a 1 to 2 minute impromptu speech. And today we're going to be looking at the prepared speeches. So those are the 3 to 5 and the 5 to 7 minute speeches. If you have questions about impromptus, we're not going to cover that today, but if you have those questions, stick around to the end and let me know in the chat, or you can put up your hand and we can talk about impromptus then. Another guideline for speeches is that you cannot have any props or be wearing a costume when you're presenting. So for example, you can't be holding an artifact, or if your speech is about phones, you can't be holding a cell phone, and you can't bring anything up with you apart from the speech on your cue cards. And you can't be wearing anything related to your topic as well. Also, there are points deducted for being under or over time. So you really want to make sure you're within that time limit. But also, while you're speaking, you will not be given any indication of your timing. So there won't be clocks in the room for you to check your timing, and no one's going to say, oh, you're really approaching the 5-minute limit or the 7-minute limit. You need to wrap it up. So if you're out of time, you're going to be deducted points, but you have to know yourself ahead of time whether you're going to be under or over time, and you need to cut it or add more just to make sure you're within that time limit, because you don't want to get those deducted points. So you really got to be prepared. And again, you don't have to talk about something related to 4-H or agriculture. Some people think that, but really it's up to your imagination as to what you want to talk about. And your 4-H age is your age as of December 31st of 2022. Okay, choosing a topic. There are so many different things that you could talk about for a speech that the task of choosing one can seem so daunting. You could do a factual speech where you provide an overview of a person, event, place, or idea. A persuasive speech is where you try to persuade people to agree or disagree with an idea by presenting them with some kind of supporting evidence. A personal speech is where you talk about something that means a lot to you. Or a humorous speech where you talk about something funny and the whole point is to make people laugh. Really, what you have to ask yourself when choosing a topic is this: what is something important to me that I could talk about? Everyone, no matter how introverted, has some subject where they could talk for hours and hours on. So try and think about that. You want to be choosing something that is meaningful to you, because it's very obvious when someone is bored or not interested in what they're talking about. And also when someone's really wanting to tell you about it and they're super passionate. So the most important thing is that you choose a good topic for yourself. That's the first step in the right direction. It also has to be something that you will have enough to say to fill the time, but also isn't some gigantic topic that you don't even get to make your point in time. So it's got to be something manageable. So there's a sheet in the package we're going to look at. I think it's on page 4. We're going to do a writing activity now. So if you want to turn to that page 4, or you can grab a pencil and piece of paper instead. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and during that time, I want you to write down as many topics as you possibly can that you could do your speech on. Again, we're trying to think of things that you know something about and would be interested in telling a group about. You can absolutely do a speech where you research it, so you don't necessarily know everything straight off your head. You can do a lot of research and figure things out. that's something as well. But you do want to know a little bit about the topic just to start off. Remember, these topics really can be anything. So here are some ideas on the screen. You could do a speech on dogs versus cats, something event in history like a World War II battle, coffee versus tea, the best day ever, your family, your friends, a role model, a famous person. We've got Albert Einstein in this, or honeybee, worst vacation ever. You could do something on 4-H, like a 4-H animal you maybe have, or some kind of social issue in the world, or really anything. So if you get stuck in the 3 minutes, maybe take a look at this picture here and it might help you just start thinking again. Really, the thing is just to get your hand writing, just to get your hand moving, because once your hand starts writing and starts moving, the ideas will start to come in your head. So you may not start off with a topic that you think is great, but as soon as you just start and you start writing, you're gonna go great places. So I'm gonna start that 3-minute timer now, and you can start writing now. So someone put a question in the chat. You're going to be writing just topics, so just ideas that you could write your speech about. Yeah, like something on the screen. You could choose something to start there. Okay, we got less than a minute left. All right. That's the time up. 3 minutes is gone. It goes very quickly. I hope that was a fun activity, a little bit of a break, and your page is full of ideas. So now we really have to narrow down those topics. Give yourself a couple of seconds just to look over the paper and choose those top 3 best ideas. And then you can write those in at the bottom of the page. So someone asked a good question was, are you allowed to give your opinion in speeches? Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely give an opinion about something. There's an important distinction that you have to point out, that it is your opinion and it's not a fact. So make sure that you show that it is your opinion. But yeah, opinions are definitely great things. So this is a great activity just to get your brain working and thinking. And if you want to do this again later in your own time, there's a page on the next sheet for that. Okay, the introduction. Now we're going to choose one of those 3 topics, and we're going to work on drafting a bit of an outline to your speech. So the introduction is one of the most important parts of your speech, because you're grabbing the attention. So this is crucial. When you're writing your speech, you can either note down important facts or ideas in the order you want to present them, or you can write the whole speech down word for word. The advantage of just noting it down is that your speech may come across as more natural and less rehearsed, and it won't look as though you're reading something you've written word for word. The advantage, on the other hand, of writing down the whole speech word for word is that you will always know exactly what you're going to say next. So unless you're feeling pretty confident, I suggest that you write every word of your speech out, as that way you're going to feel more prepared. So this is just like writing something in school. Write out every word and then you're going to present it. So as I mentioned, the introduction is so important. This is where you grab your audience's attention and you make them think, wow, I want to keep hearing him speak. I want to keep hearing her speak. She sounds great. This sounds like such a cool topic. This very first part of your speech is what we're going to call the dramatic opener. You might want to try a quote. So for example, Adolf Hitler once said, if you make a lie big enough, they'll believe it. And what's good about this kind of beginning is that it doesn't tell the listener exactly what the speech will be about. It doesn't give away the topic straight away. They could be speaking about Adolf Hitler. They could be speaking about lying or the truth or really anything else. Who knows? From this first sentence, we don't know what this speaker is going to be talking about. The curiosity of not knowing what the speaker is talking about from this first sentence will make your listeners want to keep listening. If you're putting a quote at the beginning of your speech, make sure you note who said it. You could also do an interesting fact. So, since its introduction in the late 1990s, social media has become massively popular, and at 4.48 billion users, it's a part of normal life for over half of the total population worldwide. Or you could do a question. For example, have you ever wondered what it's like to own a camel? Or you could tell a story. Oh no, I woke up to hear my mum yelling at me from downstairs. Come on, let's go. Oopsies, I missed my alarm clock again. And there are loads of other ways that you could start your speech. Just make sure that it's going to engage your audience, that they're interested in what you have to say. And I should mention, this is just one way you can write a speech. There are so many different ways. This is just kind of a basic way that you can make sure you're covering all of the content that you're judged on in your speech. But there's different ways to write speeches. This isn't only the only way you can do it, and it's not necessarily the best way for you. So you just got to figure that out as you go. The next bit after the dramatic opener for this kind of speech that we're writing today is what we call the bit of extra information. This is going to reveal some of the surprises of the topic. So our first sentence was a bit like, ooh, I wonder what this speech is about. This one's going to give a bit more information. So for example, have you ever wondered what it's like to own a camel? I have. Camels are brilliantly smart animals who love to have human companions. They are domesticated, low maintenance, and can carry hundreds of pounds. It sounds like I found my forever friend. So that gives us a bit more information. Or for this speech about this person who's unfortunately not got up, they might say, it was the third day in a row that my alarm clock hadn't gone off, and now I would be late for school. I jumped out of bed, rushed to my dresser, and in a mad panic, grabbed my bag and bolted for the door. Just wait until my teacher, Mr. Matthews, sees me late and in this state again. We can probably all relate to that. We've probably all been late for school at some point in our lives. So both of these, they're just giving us a little bit more information from that dramatic beginning. And someone's put, yeah, the dramatic opener could also be called a hook. Yeah, good point. Some people call this a hook. Same thing. It's like you're hooking your audience in on your topic. Then we're going to do the welcome. So it sounds like this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, Madam Chairperson, if the person hosting is a girl, or Master of Ceremonies, if it's a boy, parents, leaders, and fellow 4-H members. This is a standard welcome. You want to make sure you've got this in your speech. It's very important. And it might sound a little bit different in different clubs. You might say welcome instead of good evening, but generally it sounds like this. This is important that you include, so make sure you've got it in there. Then we're still in the introduction. We're still introducing our topic. We're going to add a bit more background information. This gives the listener a bit more of an introduction to the topic. It's just like that extra information. It's just more. It's like extra information. Here you might want to define any words that you will use a lot in your speech that the listener might not be familiar with, or maybe give some history to the topic. If it's a story, you might want to give some information about who the characters in the story are. And here's an example of some background information from this sample speech about being late for school. So you might say, I've made a name for myself at school as being the person who always stumbled in late, looking scruffy and with all my things spewing out of my backpack. My English teacher, Mr. Matthews, was furious with me. I knew I had to do something to change things around, and I decided I would be the type of person who was the first at school. I had to learn how to get up early. Resolving to do it was one thing. Convincing myself to do it was a whole different problem. So we've got a bit more information to this story. It's not just someone now whose alarm clock didn't go off. Now we know it's this school problem, and now this speaker has decided that they're going to be getting up early. So that's what this speech is going to be about. So finally, this is the final part of your introduction. We've almost made it. We are going to state the topics or the points you're going to be covering in your speech. This is where you tell the listener exactly what you're going to be talking about. In the main content of your speech, so we've got the introduction, which is what we're looking at right now. Then we've got the content, which is where all your facts and stuff come. That's like the bulk of the speech. And then we've got the conclusion at the very end that like ties everything up. In this main content part, you'll probably have 2 to 3 big points or ideas that relate to your main topic. These are like body paragraphs, and we're going to introduce them right here. If you've written a lot of essays, you'll recognize this as similar to your thesis statement. So here's an example from the Camel speech, and these main points are going to be outlined in yellow. So today I will present evidence to support why camels make the best pets, telling you about their friendly, useful characteristics, as well as my own positive experience working with these wonderful animals. Okay, so now we know exactly what the speaker will be talking about in the bulk of their speech. All right, that was a lot of information. Now I'm going to let you practice some of that and try writing an introduction. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to jot down your ideas and draft a bit of an introduction on that topic that we chose. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to write in full sentences or anything like that. You just want to get in the habit of planning out your ideas and putting them on paper. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. But I'm going to start the timer, and you could start trying to put some ideas for that introduction, how you're going to start things off, how you're going to grab everyone's attention and make them want to listen to you. I'm going to start the timer now. Someone asked a great question. I think it's maybe page 6, I think. It's one of the beginning pages. It comes after that brainstorming sheet. I think there's another page, and then there's the introduction outline. Okay, you've got 2 more minutes to put those ideas down. All right, that is time up. How did that go for everyone? Was that easy? Was it hard? Somewhere in the middle? Personally, I find it hard to get started with my ideas, because I feel as though straight away my ideas have to be like the perfect thing that I'm going to present and it's going to be amazing. It doesn't have to be. When you start writing, it's not necessarily going to be the best that you're going to do, and you may have different ideas that come later, right? And they may be better ideas. Maybe your first idea of an introduction is the best, but just getting started is what it's all about, right? Now you finished the draft for that introduction, give yourself a pat on the back. Hardest part done. You did it. Awesome. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here for a second. You can take a step away from the screen. I know it's good just to get your eyes looking around the room for a second. Stretch, get up, grab a drink of water, and then we'll meet back here in 2 minutes time. All right. Just give a couple more seconds for anyone who's trickling back in, coming back to their computer.
Victoria, there's a question in the chat. Will you be willing to share your slides after the presentation? Is question number 1. And question number 2 is, will it be okay for viewers of the webinar to share your workbook with their club members?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. I'll make sure that they're all sent out after the webinar. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to work on some of the content for your speech next. These are the main content, the paragraphs, the main points, the main ideas. It's all the same thing. I might use different words, but we're all talking about the same thing, this big chunk in the middle of your speech where you talk about what you're talking about, right? You talk about your topic. So this speech about camels, You're going to be talking about camels. You're not introducing it. You're not ending it. It's the main chunk of your speech. So at the end of the introduction, you had those main points that you outlined. Now we're going to expand on each of them and make a paragraph about that topic, specifically diving into lots of detail and examples. So here, our first paragraph will be about the friendly, useful characteristics of camels. The second is going to be about the speaker's own experiences with camels. And as I said, this is where your real content comes in. The facts you want to talk about are all added into these paragraphs. You may want to include some quotes or statistics or examples. This is where you're going to spend most of your time writing your speech. This is where it's going to come, is lots of writing, because this part's going to be the longest in your speech. All right. You will want to start off each of these paragraphs with a sentence that introduces the idea, and then end finishing off that idea and transitioning to the next idea. So this is like an introductory sentence and an ending transition sentence. Maybe that helps you think of it. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense. So you want to make sure that all of the ideas in your speech flow with each other and that they transition well. So even though you're talking about different ideas, you want to make sure that you go nicely from one into the other, and you're not just jumping straight away from one idea to the next idea. So that's why we have this ending transition sentence. It's like magic. It connects your two ideas together. So here we go. As shown, many people agree that camels are friendly and can be useful to people. So that was from the first paragraph, right? My own experiences working with camels also show that these animals are super entertaining and would make fabulous pets. So now we're going into the next idea, right? See how we did that? It's like that magic transition. So we're going to do another practice activity. Maybe that's exciting to you. Maybe you're like, oh no, not more writing. I want you to spend 3 minutes. So again, really short amount of time. And we're going to think and plan your paragraph ideas. So you're not going to be able to write all your paragraphs or even one paragraph or anything in this amount of time. So don't set wildly amazing goals that your speech is going to be done in the next 3 minutes. You're just going to start thinking. You can write down some notes maybe of what you're thinking about your speech right now. If you have questions about your topic or things that you want to research to find out more, or find quotes or facts or statistics that support your idea, you can make a note to say, oh, I need a fact that tells me how much camels can carry, or whatever it may be, right? Think of how you might start off each paragraph, or how you might make a nice, easy transition from one paragraph to the next. 3 minutes isn't long, so you won't have time to do everything, but at least just start thinking, right? That's what it's all about. And your 3 minutes is going to start now. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. I seem to have forgotten about the page numbers. It should be on the next page after the introduction. All right, I see someone's raised their hand. Do you have a question? If so, you can turn on your mic and let me know. All right, that 3 minutes is up. I know it goes very quickly. Okay, we did that. Got it done. Now we move on to the last part of your speech. This is the conclusion. And again, this is so important. You want to finish off your speech super strong and give a great lasting impression so that when people remember you, they're able to go, oh, wow, yeah, do you remember that? Remember how that ended? That was just so great, right? You want people to be thinking that about your speech. So there are 3 main parts to the end of your speech, this concluding part. The first part, you want to restate those main points that you said. So this is a way to think about speeches that someone taught me, is that, as we said, there's 3 main parts to the speech. There's the introduction, all that big content in the body, and then we've got the ending. So in the introduction, you tell people what you're going to tell them, right? That's the stuff that you tell them in the content. And that was the stating of the main points, right, that we had in the introduction. Then in the content part, you tell them what you're telling them, right? You say, this is what I'm saying, right? And then in the conclusion, you tell them what you told them. So let's say that again. In the introduction, you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, then you tell them what you told them. It's kind of like a bit of a tongue twister, but it's an interesting way to think about things because that's the best way that people remember things. They remember at the end what you told them because you're reminding them and they're able to say, oh yeah, I remember camels were super friendly. I learned that today, right? So that's the first part of your conclusion. You got to say, this is what I talked about. Today, I presented the facts that camels are really friendly, they can be really useful to people, and that I myself have experienced this when I've worked with camels, right? It's going to be something like that. Then you're going to tell your audience, you're going to say, what is the most important thing you said, why your topic is important, or what they should take away. So you're going to tell them one thing in the middle of your conclusion that you think is super important, that you really want them to remember. And it's one of these things. Most important thing you said, why your topic is important, or what they should take away from your speech, right? And then we have a very strong finish that hopefully connects back to your dramatic opener. And the dramatic opener was that very first sentence that caught everyone's attention. And it's a really great skill in public speaking if you have your last sentence and your first sentence that are very similar, right? They're not the same, but they have similar kind of ideas. You're starting in a similar way to how you're ending. And what this does is it reminds people of the beginning, and it shows that your speech all comes together because the beginning and the ending tie it all together. So for example, in the beginning of the story about the boy who struggled with getting to school in time, you might want to end that speech with the end of that story, you know? Finishing off something similar, right? That just ties the whole speech together. It makes it really, really great written speech. So that's your conclusion. Yeah, very important part of your speech as well. They're all important, honestly. One more thing we're going to look at with writing speeches is the title of your speech. But what do I call my masterpiece speech? Try not to choose a title that just says the topic. Your title and your topic aren't the same thing. The title is the thing that you are maybe going to submit to a 4-H club leader. They might publish it in like a little program that says your name and the speech that you're going to be giving. The title should try to make your title something that makes people look forward to hearing it and that draws them in. It's something connected to your topic, but they might not know exactly what your speech is about when they read your title. So you want to be creative. You don't want to give away exactly what the speech is about. But once they've heard your speech, it should make sense. The title should make sense. They'll probably be like, oh, well, that's why the title was that. Now it all makes sense. So here's an example of a less creative title. Why camels make the best pet. Maybe that's your topic, but title, you could try and use words that are a little bit more creative. For example, my friend with the hump, or camel companions, right? A little bit more creative. Okay. We did it. We made it to the end. You've planned out your whole speech. You've got some ideas, some different stuff that's going on in your brain. It's all coming together now. But how do you present it? How do you present this speech? You've got it all written, parts of it, different ideas going all over the place. But now you really got to stand up and you got to give it to a whole bunch of people and tell them it. How do we do that? We're going to take another break. We're going to take a 5-minute break this time. You get a little bit more time, stretch your legs, maybe grab a drink of water, a snack, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at speech presentation. Okay, so meet back here in 5 minutes. Okay, time to come back. We're gonna look at the last part of this presentation now. Putting it all together, mastering the speech presentation side of things. All right. Okay, let's do another poll. What do you think is the most important skill when presenting? Let me launch that. Hopefully you can see that now and can answer. Do you think it's keeping within the time limit, volume, speed, tone, posture, natural hand gestures, or do you have a different idea that it might be? Let me know. I see lots of answers coming in. Perfect. Okay, we just got a couple more coming in. Okay, let's take a look at these results now. Okay, a lot of people think it's keeping within the time limit. A lot of other people say they think it's the volume, some speed, some tone. Some people say natural hand gestures, and some people say something else. Okay. I would say confidence. Yeah, very good point. We're going to come to that in 1 second. The correct answer is they're all important. This is everything that comes together with your speech. It's all these different things that you chose that you think are really important. They're all so important. And this is all what speech presentation is about. It's all those things that we just talked about. And we're going to talk about them a bit more in 1 second. Yeah, someone says we couldn't select more than one. I kind of tricked you there. I kind of said you got to choose one when really it's all of them. I'm sorry there. So this is poise. This is like a fancy word that's just talking about how your body moves and how you stand and your hand gestures. So first of all, posture, right? This is how you're standing. And this is so important, where you make a huge impression on people based on how you stand, right? If you're really slouchy, you don't show off a great impression of yourself because you look a little bit informal, right? You got to be steady on both of your feet and you can't rock back and forth or side to side. And this is something that I do and I've learned and I've tried to correct, is that when I speak, I do this a little bit. I go back and forth and I look a bit like a pendulum swinging, and it's so distracting because then you get distracted in the motion and you're just watching the person go back and forth and you're not interested in what they're saying anymore because you're just obsessed with this motion, right? So you got to try and keep that motion going back and forth as little as possible. Try and stand as still as you possibly can. You want to be relaxed, right? So one way you can practice that is just breathe in, bring your shoulders up, and then breathe out. And your shoulders feel a bit more relaxed. Your muscles are all just like relaxing, right? But also on that point, you don't want to stand super rock solid in a position. You got to find this balance, right? You don't want to be super slouchy, but you also don't want to be like so rock solid that all your bones are just like muscles are tensed, right? And you can't move, and like using your hands is impossible because they're so clenched like this. That's not good either, right? It's got to be somewhere in between. This is what gives you the confidence that someone points out. You got to look confident. And that's what this is all about. Posture is really where that all starts. And another thing, you want to stand in the middle of the stage. Sometimes that can be a little nerve-wracking because you're just right in the middle and everyone's watching you, but you really just got to go for it. Stand right in the middle. you could take a few steps around. Some people feel more comfortable if they're taking steps around the stage. Don't move too much, because then again, people get obsessed with the movement, right? You're just watching the person move a lot. But moving, it can make you feel more comfortable. It can kind of relax your body a little bit if you're taking some steps around. So you can do that too, if that makes you feel better. Your hands as well. Who thought? It's all about your mouth, but it's about your hands too. Your hands should be holding your cue cards, right? So we got our cue cards here. We should be holding them. This is what our speech is on. You don't want to be holding them so low, because when you hold your cue cards low, your eyes look at the ground. And you want your eyes to be looking up, so you're looking at the people you're speaking to. And you want them to be able to see your face, right? But you also don't want to have your cue cards super high, because then no one sees your face, right? You got to make it so that your face is seen by everyone, because that's part of where your confidence comes from. Try and keep your hands steady. Some people's hands shake when they're speaking. So just try and control that a little bit, then you'll look a bit more confident as well. And then hand gestures. Some people pointed out they think this is the most important thing, and is definitely one of the most important things. You want to have occasional hand gestures that draw your audience in. But you also don't want them so much all over the place, because then again, people become obsessed with the motion of your hands, right? And they're not interested in what you're saying. And you don't want to repeat the same hand gestures. So maybe you have a hand gesture where you like twirl your hand like this, maybe like a really specific thing, some example, and you're twirling your hand like this. If you do that 10 times, it sort of loses its impact, right? Because now you've done it a lot, it becomes a bit of a habit, right? So you want those hand gestures to be intentional and to come in the right places, but you definitely need them. Yeah, you definitely need those hand gestures. Okay, your voice. Your voice is your instrument in public speaking, right? It's all about the voice. You have to speak clearly, and you should check the pronunciation of any words you don't know or you're not sure of. Because if you're saying a word and maybe you're pronouncing it a little bit wrong, it can get people a bit confused because they're not sure what word you're trying to say. So just check them, or you can ask like a family or member or friend and say, oh, is this how you pronounce it, or is it a bit more like this? Just to make sure you've got that all right. Another thing is you want to enunciate. So you want to make sure that every word that comes out of your mouth, you are pronouncing completely. You're saying every single word correctly, and they're not all running together. So that way people can hear what you're saying. They can hear every word that you're saying. That's super important. The speed. A lot of people pointed this out as the most important thing. Some people struggle with getting the right speed, and this is something that's really hard. You want to not go too fast and not too slow, somewhere in between. And your tone, you got to vary your voice. Some people know the words monotone, which is like when it's all on the same level, it gets a little bit boring. You want to try and vary it up a little bit, try and go up and down, and you want to put pauses in the right places, right? This is what really pulls the whole presentation together, is when you master that tone. And volume. You got to be loud enough so everyone can hear you. If you're not loud enough, then all the work you did in writing your speech and making it perfect, then you won't be able to show off your speech because people won't be able to hear you, right? You also don't want to be booming loud so that everyone's like deafening and plugging their ears, right? Again, it's all about balance with all of these things. Okay, we've got a couple extra tips here. You can print your speech on 3x5 cue cards. So that's 3 inches by 5 inches. That's this size. You can choose different sizes as well. This is just what I do. This is what I used. Cue cards, they often have lines on one side and then they're blank on another side. And you can buy these from the dollar store or at like Walmart or something like that. And you can print on here if you put them into a printer. You can also cut out a speech and like glue different sheets onto here. Maybe your introduction could go on one sheet, and then on the next sheet you can have the welcome part or something, right? And so then when you're speaking, you've got all your cue cards in front of you and you can see them. Another thing is a key ring. You can put a key ring in the corner of your speech, and this holds them all together and in the right order, so that when you're flipping through, you know what's coming next, right? And you can see, and it's right there. Another thing you can do is you can put numbers, like in the corner down here. You can just write the number of which card you're on. Yeah, so maybe you have 14 cue cards, just number them 1 to 14. Another tip, try your best to know your speech and use your cue cards as little as possible. This all comes down to eye contact, right? You want to make sure that you are engaging your audience with your eyes and that you're looking at them and everything. And if you can look up from your speech a lot, then you're able to draw them in even more, right? Because your eyes are connecting with their eyes. You don't have to memorize your speech, absolutely not. As you move forward, if you can get to like regionals, you're expected to know your speech a bit more, but you're never expected to memorize your speech. So don't worry about that. Some people memorize their speeches, some people don't. It all depends on what you want to do. Sometimes memorizing is good, sometimes it's not so good, because then your speech comes out as like one long piece, right? If you memorize every single word, then now it might just come out all at once and you won't be able to give any variation, right? If you're trying to know your speech well, especially be familiar with this first and last line of each cue card, because when you're turning your cue card, right, if you know the last line, then you can turn the cue card and be speaking that last line while you move on, while you're getting ready to use the next cue card, if that makes sense, right? That way you don't have any time where you've stopped because you finished reading here and now you have to turn the cue card and then you can read the next one. That's a super minor thing. Doesn't matter really at all. Just a thing to think about, right? Another thing is to wait a second before you start and finish. As you walk up, you're going to turn around and look at your audience. Then take a deep breath. Make sure you get like a sign that maybe your club leader or a timekeeper might give you a thumbs up and say, okay, you can start now. Take a breath and then you can start speaking. And then the same thing at the end. Make sure you take a deep breath before, once you've just finished. Then some people bow, or you can just bow your head. And then you walk back as everyone claps for you because you did such a fantastic job, right? Extra tips, more tips. Practicing. You can practice in the mirror or in front of your family and friends, and then they can critique you. Or you can video yourself as well. These are different ways just to see what you're really good at and what you maybe need to work on a little bit more. If your speeches are online, you can practice over Zoom. You can just set up a Zoom meeting by yourself and make sure that you're familiar with how things work on Zoom, right? Speeches on Zoom are like a whole different world, right? So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that, that you know that your mic's working, that your camera is working, that you've got this nice background that frames everything well and isn't super distracting. And you want to make sure that you can be heard over speech when you're speaking online. So yeah, you can set that up ahead of time if you're on Zoom, and just make sure you're comfortable doing speeches online if you have to do that. In the package workbook sent out, on the second last page, I believe, there is a critique sheet. So you can give your speech once you finish writing it and you practice it. You can give it, present it in front of your family and friends. And they can write down notes on the sheet of paper and say what you're really good at and maybe something to think about to work on, right? And that can help you be able to get better and improve as time goes on. So that's definitely something that you can try and practice ahead of time, because that's really all the judges are doing, is they're just doing what your family and friends would be doing there. They're just watching you do it and they're going, wow, that was super good. Or, oh, maybe they could work on that a little bit. Maybe that could be a little bit more professional in one way, or whatever it may be, right? And then finally, finish writing your speech early. Give yourself time to practice. Don't finish it the day of, because then that will make you feel a little bit anxious when you get up there because you've only just finished it. In case you're not familiar, this is what the judges give you. It looks kind of like this. This is what you'll receive after you've after they've judged the speeches and given everything away. You'll get a comment sheet that each of the judges has written out for you. And some of it's great comments. They'll say, wow, you did so good at this. I'm so impressed. And sometimes they'll say, you could work on this going forward, right? There's two sides to each one. You get a time. They tell you what time. They judge you on your introduction, organization of your speech, the content, right? That's the big main part of your speech, your creativity, grammar, presentation, poise, delivery, summary, and overall impression. So those are the things you're going to get on your comments sheet. There is also a different comments sheet that they fill out that you don't get. And you can find a copy of one of them on the 4-HBC website, I believe, or you can check with a club leader and they can provide you with that. And that's how they figure out your score, is they give you, I think it's a 1 to 5 on a bunch of different scales. But this is for you to keep. You get to look at this, you get to keep it forever. And you can look over it and you can check to see what you can improve on. Okay. And then finally, practice, 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 and keep practicing. Because this is how you get better. And it's practicing that same speech for your competition. That's practicing. It's also doing speeches for year after year after year. And that's what's so awesome about 4-H, is that you may be 9 years old. Think of how amazing of a public speaker you will be when you are 17, 18 years old. If you do a speech every single year, you get so many opportunities to practice and improve, and you'll be able to see your confidence and your skills improve over the years. And that is so exciting. Okay, and that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to hang around here for a few more minutes. If you've got questions, I'll try and answer them. If not, I believe Danusha has some announcement to give out. I hope you learned something this evening. Hope you're feeling a bit more confident now. Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I think everybody wants to give her a round of applause right now, because that was amazing. That was a lot of information that you shared. And I think there's going to be some amazing speeches this year. I am going to put in the chat a link. Oh yeah, look at all that. Those chairs go up. That's great. I'm going to put in the link in the chat, a link to a survey. And if you can take the time, those of you maybe who need to go, you're welcome to call this the end of the meeting. If you have questions that you want to ask, you're welcome to stay on a little bit longer and ask Victoria some questions. But please fill out the survey before you go. So we appreciate you being here and being part of our webinar series. We will be sending out those slides to you, and hopefully we should be able to post the recording to YouTube sometime in the next week. So we'll turn it back to you guys for questions. Put up your hand, and then Victoria can call on you with your questions. Maybe use a virtual hand. So go down to the reactions at the bottom of your screen. Use the virtual hand to put up if you have specific questions, or just unmute yourself. That's fine too.
Okay, I see Emma and Jocelyn's hand up. Do you have a question?
I was wondering if it was something that you could make up, like a story that you could make up just to make people laugh.
Oh, that's a good idea. I haven't seen a speech like that before, but I think that is a brilliant idea. I saw someone once do a speech where they did a poem that they'd made up. And that was amazing. It was like one of the best speeches I've ever seen because it was so creative, right? You want to choose a speech topic that is like so creative and that people remember you. So that's a brilliant idea. I love that. You should totally go for that.
And are you allowed like make up a song that you can put in there and stuff like that?
It's probably more speaking rather than singing, but like if it was more of like like some songs you sing, some songs are more like speaking, but if it's more of that kind of thing, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And you mentioned that like there's no clocks or anything. Can you wear a watch?
No, you cannot wear a watch. Sometimes they'll tell you and say, oh, can you take off your watch? So yeah. Yeah, so you gotta just
practice it at home and see and guess how long it'll take.
Yeah, you should time yourself beforehand. Time yourself lots of times because sometimes your speech might be 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Sometimes it might be 4 minutes and 55 seconds, just because you're speaking at different speeds, right? So make sure you practice and you're consistently within the time. And if you're over time, then you really just got to cut something out. Or if you're under time, you just got to add something because it's not worth getting deducted the points because you get a fair amount of points deducted and it's just disappointing, right? So absolutely, make sure you practice.
Okay.
Okay, let me see who else has got their hand up. McKenna.
Hi, this is my first year as a senior. I've done like several speeches before, but what should I expect for impromptus?
This is a brilliant question. They seem nerve-wracking to begin with. They're not nerve-wracking. You just got to get a little bit more comfortable with it. So impromptus is, I'm not sure if you know this, but for anyone else who may not know it, you get 1 minute to prepare a 1 to 2 minute speech on a topic that they give you. So usually what happens is all the speakers go out of the room into a separate room. Then they're called back in reverse order. So if you're the last person who spoke, you come back in first. If you're the last person who spoke your prepared speech, right? And then you're going to sit down. There's going to be a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to be given 1 minute, and you can write down some notes. Then they'll say, Kate, time's up. You don't carry the notes with you. You got to go up and then give your speech then. So that's how it works. But if you're looking for tips, it's the same as your prepared speech, just super condensed, right? You want a super catchy hook, but don't spend all your time thinking of the hook, right? Because this is what I've done. I've done this a few times, is like, I'll just be like, oh, I need a really good beginning. And then I waste all my time thinking of the beginning, and then I have nothing to speak about, right? So think of the beginning, that's important, but that's more of like a last minute thing. Make sure you have 3 points, 2 to 3 points about the topic that you can talk about. And then an ending can be really short. This, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, that thing, that you got to include after your introduction. So it's just the same, it's just super condensed. If you want to practice impromptus, that's a great idea. get a list of impromptu topics online. I think there's one on the 4-H website, and there's a whole bunch of different ones that come up. Another thing is that you want to talk about something that you know about, right? Because often they'll be open-ended. They might be, if I was invisible for a day, I would do this, right? And you want to talk about something that you know. So when you're practicing, you want to think about different ideas, and you want to kind of prepare different impromptu speeches for different topics. So if they say, my favorite day, you have an example of your favorite day. If you have my best memory, you can answer it with the same ideas, right? So that you know you have sort of prepared impromptu speeches for different topics that are going to come up, so that when you're there, you know what you're going to say, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but you have things that you can talk about. Even if the words are different, that they ask you a different question, you can still answer it with the same response, right? So really important, think of your 3 points is the most important thing with impromptus, and just practice so much that you get just so good at it, right? That's really the best way to improve, especially with impromptus. Does that answer your question somewhat?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see who else we have. Samantha, I see your hand.
Hi, where do you find information on speak and show and demonstration?
Oh, speak and show and demonstrations. You mean like how you do them? Or like a scorecard? I think you're muted there.
Oh. What's the difference?
Between speak and shows and demonstrations, or between them and like speeches? Or like just all of them, how are they all different?
I'm pretty sure speak and show and demonstration.
Okay, speak and show and demonstration are very, very similar. Demonstration is 2 people, speak and show is 1 person. Demonstration is 8 to 10 minutes, speak and show is 10 to 20 minutes, and speak and show has to be on agriculture or food related topic. And do you have an idea of kind of how they work with like the presentation boards, or is this something like completely new, speak and shows and demonstrations? Like, have you seen one before, or is this just like you don't know before?
I've seen one before, but yeah.
Okay, there is another webinar coming up in like 2 weeks that I suggest you come to. We're gonna do a similar kind of thing. We're gonna talk about speak and shows and demonstrations and how they're different and what you do. So I suggest you come to that, and we'll answer all your questions.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
No problem. Let's just see what we've got. Someone says, will there be another webinar on impromptus? Because that's where all your marks come from when you are at provincials. You are absolutely correct. We should do a webinar on impromptus. That sounds like a great idea. Maybe next year. If you have a question about it, ask me now, but let's do one next year. But yeah, you're right. They're so important when you go to provincials. Yeah, exactly. Okay, another question, Jolene.
Why no watches or clocks?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It seems quite like a very specific thing, right? Yeah, it's never made sense to me why you don't get watches or clocks. I think probably just because they want you to be prepared ahead of time to know how long your speech could be. I don't know. Danusha, do you know why no clocks or watches? Nope. Okay, yeah.
I have no idea, but we could maybe do some research and see if we can come up with the answer to that question.
Yes, absolutely. We'll try and figure something out.
Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions?